My first big ski adventure was with my companions Angel, Amy, and Jessica. We flew to Colorado, where we rented an Airbnb condo in the quaint town of Snowmass, located near Aspen Mountain Ski Resort. My snowboarding experience was limited to a single occasion, which consisted of multiple trips down a beginner slope. Admittedly, my skills were lacking. Upon arrival from the airport, we took an Uber to an Airbnb. It was a spacious 4-bedroom dwelling with an expansive deck with a hot tub and panoramic views of the Colorado landscape. Thursday night, as night was falling, we headed out to a local tavern. The next day we went straight to the slopes again by Uber, and for convenience we decided to rent gear on the mountain. There were surprisingly few people, probably because it was a weekday. However, the next day saw an influx of visitors. Despite my best efforts, I failed several times to make it down the slope without falling. Frustration peaked and I stopped at the side of the slope to recover and take a break. While I was resting, numerous skiers, including children, whizzed by and effortlessly made their way down the slope. Then a man who looked as inexperienced as I was approached me. He asked how I was feeling and struck up a conversation. It seemed unusual for me to engage in dialogue in such an environment. After a brief conversation, I got up, wished him a good day, and continued snowboarding down the mountain. This run was classified as a blue run, which meant a longer and slightly more challenging descent than the green runs. I stopped even lower to take a breath, still not enjoying what was happening. To my dismay, the same man as before, experiencing the same difficulties, reappeared nearby. He took off his snowboard and sat down next to me, striking up a conversation about how it's rare to see someone like me here. His remark struck me as odd, considering that my ski mask and helmet almost completely hid my face. When he asked who I was with, I falsely replied that I was with my boyfriend. He chuckled, mentioning that he'd only ever seen me come with my girlfriends. I responded with a loud ew and quickly returned to my snowboard, heading down the mountain with renewed skill, perhaps driven by a desire to disengage from this encounter. Upon reaching the base, I quickly sought refuge in the lodge and contacted my friends. Amy was the first to respond, and I recounted what had happened, asking her to keep me company. She joined me shortly thereafter. I had already suggested in our group chat that we leave, considering the time was nearing 3 p.m. and we had been there for hours. Once Angel and Jessica finished their runs, they met us at the lodge. We returned our rented gear and Ubered back to the Airbnb. Refreshed, we had lunch in the village and then visited a few local bars, drinking heavily. Back at the Airbnb, we soaked in the hot tub on the deck while continuing to drink. Eventually, we dispersed to our rooms for the night. As someone prone to insomnia, I stayed awake immersed in TikTok on my phone, even as I was still feeling the effects of the alcohol. My vigilance proved fortunate as I detected footsteps in the common area either in the living room or the kitchen. The Airbnb apartment had a wooden floor, which amplified the sound. At first I assumed it was one of the girls, perhaps heading to the restroom or to get water. However, when I heard the doorknob to my room turn, I stood up, ready to call her name, but hesitated. Why would any of them try to enter my room unannounced? A sense of unease swept over me, and I fell silent, listening intently. The doorknob stopped moving, but the disturbing sound of footsteps continued, now moving away from my door. I sent a message to the group chat, asking if anyone was up and moving around the room, but there was no response. The silence of the night was soon broken by a low creak coming from the living room. My heart raced at the thought of an intruder in the house. I quietly slipped out of bed and locked my bedroom door. Peeking through the keyhole, I saw faint shadows moving across the walls. The footsteps grew louder and then suddenly stopped. I held my breath, hoping the man would move on. Minutes passed, seeming like hours, until I heard the door of one of my friends open. I quickly sent another message to the group chat, alerting them to the situation. Amy replied, confirming that she had heard the noise as well. We decided to discreetly call the local authorities. While waiting for help to arrive, we gathered in Amy's room, using furniture to barricade the door. The tension was palpable as we heard someone trying the knobs in the other bedrooms. It was now clear that we were not alone in the house. The police arrived quickly, and after a thorough search they found a man hiding in the basement, the same man from the ski slopes. He had been following us as we returned from the mountain and had somehow infiltrated the Airbnb. It was a chilling discovery that reminded us how important it is to be mindful of our surroundings and the people we encounter. We spent the rest of our trip being extra cautious and making sure to double-check all locks and windows before heading out for an overnight stay. The experience shook us, but also brought us closer together. We knew we had each other's backs in a crisis. This terrifying encounter on what was supposed to be a fun ski trip was a stark reminder that danger can lurk in the most unexpected places, and sometimes the real horror stories are the ones we experience.